Who is Edward Blum and why should we care? Edward Blum is the man who is credited with killing affirmative action. And now it seems he has set his sights on diversity programs in America's workplace. With that in mind, let's stop and talk about what exactly is a diversity program. Well, they're typically known with the acronym DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Who came up with this? Where did this originate? It's fairly common, but it had to have a starting place somewhere. I would kind of like to know that because virtually every major corporation and many minor corporations, small businesses, have a department of DEI. Same thing is true of schools. Virtually every major school, even small schools, have a department or an office of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity, that means nobody is left out. Inclusion, that means nobody is left out. So those are kind of redundant, but what is equity? Equity, as I understand it, means that the intent, the objective, is to establish equal outcomes. It's not that everyone has an equal opportunity, but they're going to have the same outcome as everyone else. So when you see something that strives to achieve equal outcomes, you are seeing something that is striving to achieve Marxism, because that is the objective of Marxism. So I kind of think of these departments, these offices of DEI, disagree with me if you want, as departments of Marxism. They're implementing Marxism in the workforce. Well, I guess I shouldn't have to say it, but the problem with that is Marxism doesn't work. It's just an unworkable, bad idea. But when you see an office of DEI, think of it as the office of Marxism. In other words, DEI is it's a Trojan horse, kind of pleasant sounding. Yeah, we're going to make everybody equal. But when you stop and think about it, what if they achieve their goals? What if everyone has the same outcome? I mean, everyone graduates top of the class. Well, that means everyone graduates the bottom of the class. Everyone has an equal outcome. That means everyone who wants to be on the basketball team gets to be on the basketball team. And when it comes time to play basketball against an opponent, everybody who wants to be in the game gets to be in the game. You know that rule in basketball where you can only have 5 players on the floor at the same time? Well, under equity, now everybody gets to be on the floor. So you could have hundreds of players on the floor at the same time. You could have thousands of players on the same time. Well, what if everybody wants to have the ball? Well, then you got to come up with hundreds or thousands of balls. Everybody gets the ball. That doesn't work. You know, it's just silly. It's so absurd. We wonder why they're trying to implement this because, well, hey, it's Marxism. Marxism is at its root core absurd. It's just nonsense. It's just flat out crazy, but we're doing it. DEI, we have a department of Marxism. We have an office of Marxism. So it just, again, isn't going to work. Now, let's take this and put it in the context of a corporation. How is that going to work? Well, everybody gets to be the CEO because we have equal outcome. Everybody gets the same paycheck. I mean, exactly the same paycheck. The CEO, the custodian, the guy who works on the assembly line, everybody gets the same paycheck. It doesn't matter what your race or ethnicity or your age or your weight or your capabilities. Everybody who wants to work gets a job and everybody gets the same paycheck or identical paycheck. That system doesn't work. It cannot work. So when you see the Office of Equity, as we said earlier, you're seeing the Office of Marxism, you're seeing something that does not work, cannot work, and it makes perfect sense that somebody like Edward Blum would have the courage to stand up and say, hey, this doesn't work, we need to do something about it, we need to stop it. And that appears to be exactly what he's doing. So it makes perfect sense that somebody, in this case it's Edward Blum, would stand up and try to set this thing straight, put things in proper order, because equity simply does not work, because it cannot work, and we need someone who understands that and knows how to, again, set things straight. All right, so how is he going to do this? Well, we looked at an article at nypost.com, and here's what we learned. The 1866 Civil Rights Act, the story says, is a federal law prohibiting discrimination on the basis of race, color, and ethnicity when making and enforcing contracts. And it goes on to explain that section 1981, that's part of the act, not the year 1981, specifically grants all individuals within the U.S. jurisdiction the same rights and benefits as, quote, enjoyed by white citizens regarding contractual relationships. All right, so effectively, this is legislating white privilege. I mean, quite literally. So now, according to federal law, as of 1866, everybody has white privilege, but it doesn't stop there. So the problem with the 1866 Civil Rights Act is it addresses everybody except for, and specifically except for, white people. That needs to be fixed. That needs to be rectified. Well, actually it was back in 1976 when the United States Supreme Court broadened those protections to include white people. So now this is the premise, I believe, that Edward Blum is using to take equity and putting it in its proper place, where we can have true equality in the workplace and everywhere else, and we can ditch this crazy, insane notion of Marxism. So here is an important question. What exactly is the difference between a slave plantation and communism? The answer is, well, in a slave plantation, you have a slave plantation. But in communism, you don't have communes. What you have slave plantations. It may be a factory, but in effect, it's a slave plantation. You've got the owner, which is the government, and you have everyone else who are the slaves. Well, you've got the taskmasters, that work for the government. What is the government? The government is comprised of people, by the way. You take people, bureaucrats, out of government, and you have nothing. Nothing at all. So when we talk about the government, we're talking about slave owners, slave masters, and then under them are taskmasters, enforcers, and then under them, this three-tiered system, you have the rest of us who are slaves. That is communism. Well, that's what they call communism. What they should call it is properly slavery. So the difference between a slave plantation and communism, the only real thing I can think of besides communism as a misnomer, is the fact that communism is a government institution and a slave plantation is a private institution that is supported by the government. So in my opinion, what Edward Blum is doing is he is putting a stop to this new effort to impose national slavery on the United States. I think that's something that I can get behind. If you got something out of this video, why not subscribe? Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you think it deserves it. Add your thoughts to the comment section below. And sharing this on social media, yeah, that helps a lot. So yeah, we would appreciate it if you would do that as well.